Hello and welcome to our Giant Leap podcast presented by the Space Generation Advisory Council. Our Giant Leap discusses diversity, equity, and inclusion issues within the global aerospace industries. Dreams are beautiful, dreams are wonderful, dreams are simply magical. But most importantly, they are universal. No matter who you are or where you're from, regardless of your socio-economic status, gender identity, whether a specific region, country, or continent, we all dream. You can lie on the ground on a moonless night and marvel at the splendor of the universe. However, these magical dreams, which seem to hold the power to unify humans beyond our differences, often crash hard when they meet reality. When a dream transforms into a goal, differences emerge. Some goals are encouraged while others are denied. Some paths are blocked because of your gender or how you identify. Others are obstructed by where you come from or the amount of money your family makes.
Space, like dreams, is supposed to unite us. No matter who you are or where you live, we all see the same moon, gaze at the same night sky, and feel the warmth of the same sun. Yet, when pursuing a career in space sector, the path can often depend on where you come from. For some nationalities, entering the space sector is straightforward. For others, it's an uphill battle filled with background checks and endless rejections. But it doesn't have to be this way. We must challenge the status quo. We should strive for a future where access to space is democratic, transcending borders and backgrounds. A future where goals are synonyms with dreams. A future where joining the space sector is defined by passion and admiration, not by nationality, gender, or the color of your skin. My name is Amin.
And I'm Tanya. We'll be your hosts for today's episode. Joining us are our two guests, Maya and Sepideh. Today, we'll discuss our stories, how each of us, coming from different backgrounds, has navigated or is still struggling to enter the space sector.
Good evening to you, Maya and Sepide. We are so happy to have you on the Our Giant Leap podcast with us today. So, we will start with a small round of introduction, getting to know our guest, also getting to know the hosts better. So, Maya, can you start by introducing a little bit yourself, your background, where you come from, and all?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to talk about this very important topic today. So, my name is Maya Nasser. I am currently a research scientist and an aerospace engineer at Harvard University and the Environmental Defense Fund, working on the methane SAP project to help in mitigating climate action as we go forward. I'm originally from Lebanon, but I'm currently based in Boston for the last 10 years of my life, and this is where I also studied aerospace engineering from my bachelor's throughout my PhD at MIT. I think the topic of nationalities and passport restrictions is something that's really near and dear to my heart, and I'm excited to get the perspectives and have the discussion today.
It's our pleasure to have you here. Indeed, this topic is quite important. Uh, Sometimes not talked about as much as it should, and it would be our pleasure to dive deep with you into this. And Sepide, our second guest, can you tell us a bit about your story?
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be a guest on this podcast. I hope our conversation today will be both meaningful and motivational for all the space enthusiasts listening. My name is Sepideh Lashkari, and I'm originally from Iran and currently based in Canada. I hold a degree in biomechanical engineering from France, and I'm honored to be the first female Iranian analog astronaut representing my country with just my Iranian nationality. I'll soon be starting my PhD in Canada, and I'm thrilled to share my journey and insights with you today.
We are also so excited to have you. And wow, wonderful. First Iranian analog astronaut. That would be definitely something that will come up in the podcast. And now we go to Tania. Tania, you are my dear friend and colleague on the podcast, but let our listeners know more about you. How did you end up in space?
Hi everyone, I'm Tania DeCosta. I'm originally from Mumbai, India, but I'm currently pursuing my master's in space technologies and business in Luxembourg. And definitely coming from a different country, which is not really into the, I'd say, 22 nationalities or countries of Europe. Um, because what I feel is space sector also hugely is involved into defense, which is why they are restricted to taking certain people into their projects. But more importantly, I think space is also a place where everyone welcomes um, each person from different backgrounds and has a shared passion, which is to reach for the stars, which is also why I think it is a much inspiring area and to dive deep of how it really helps us improve life on Earth. Uh, yes, that's all. But we could now move to also Amin, who is, I think, a brilliant person in terms of how he looks into this aspect and the way he dreams. So we would love to know what you do and how did you end up in the space sector.
Thank you, Tanya. So I'm Amin. I'm part of the Our Giant Leap podcast for a year and a half now. I come from Tunisia, a country in North Africa. Ended up in space because I loved science. I loved physics. I loved to learn about the stars, about to learn love about the universe, and space just amazed me. In this journey to try to understand how the universe works and how life happens, be maybe happen or may not outside of the boundaries of our small planet, I found it sometimes quite difficult to pursue that because of where I come from, and in a way now pushed me to try to change a little bit, to move from space uh, to study more fundamental physics, because as you said, sometimes space is very linked to defense. With this, we would like to go deeper with our guest, Sepideh, about your own personal journey into space. How did it start, and how did you? What are the different obstacles or motivations that you found to be able to be here today with us and discuss this with us?
Of course, I've always been someone who gives their all in everything they do, and that mindset helped me work hard and get into Sharif University of Technology. I choose physics because it's the foundation of all sciences, and I have always loved how it challenged me to think deeply. While studying, I also played basketball professionally, which is where I discovered my love for biomechanics. It was the perfect connection between my two passions, space and sport. To follow this passion further, I moved to France for a master degree where I got to explore human performance and engineering come together. Then in January 2023, something incredible happened. I was accepted for a PhD in biomechanical engineering, focusing on space medicine. It felt like a dream coming true. But my journey hit a big roadblock. I was stuck in a visa clearance for over 21 months because of my nationality, something I never choose and have no control over. Even though I strongly disagree with my government's policies, I was ultimately rejected simply because of where I was born. It was heartbreaking and it was so really hard for me. Still, it's only strengthened my determination to keep moving forward and fighting for my place in this field. I know my story isn't unique, but it's one I'm proud of because it reminds me to never give up.
This is so inspiring, and yeah, it is so hard when dreams do crash with reality, right? When you think that, wow, this is the start of everything, but then policies comes into play and geopolitics on a bigger scale than any one of us could actually choose end up being the block for what we really want to do. Something that, as you said, we really don't have anything to do with. We just submit to the harsh reality that we live in. Maya, my question to you will be, you've been living in Boston for over 10 years now, between pursuing your studies after your higher education studies. What exactly pushed you to leave your country and to go somewhere else to pursue this passion of yours?
Yeah, of course. And it's always, heartbreaking yet inspiring to hear stories like Sepideh and a lot of us in the space sector who shared such similar paths, yet very different, but very shared a base story of the struggles and the similarity in that sense. So personally, I grew up in a very tiny village in Lebanon. And for me, being in a village, you can see the dark, beautiful sky every day, and you'd be able to see all the stars, and you're just gazing into it. And really, what inspired me to want to pursue something like this is trying to answer the big questions about the universe. Space for me was this kind of a place where I can ask the questions of: is there life on different planets? What's going on? And how are black holes created? How can we do X, Y, Z? So for me, that was always the main inspiration to study aerospace engineering and to be able to work within the space sector. So I've always wanted to, to be an astronaut and dig deeper into these topics. But I knew that if I stay in Lebanon, I wouldn't be able to pursue these topics because we don't have the programs and the organizations and infrastructure needed for studying that. So I got accepted to a scholarship that helped me in applying to universities in the US. And I applied to MIT at the time. And it was really kind of a joke. I didn't expect that it's going to work because the chances were too little that I'd be able to actually move. Until it really happened. I was 16. I opened my email account and I saw the acceptance to MIT, and that was the turning point for me to realize if I have to actually pursue my dreams, I'm gonna have to leave my family behind, leave my country behind, and move to the US. At a time that I'd never been in a plane before or left the country, so it was a pretty big step for me to take. But since moving here, it's been such an incredible opportunity for me to be able to pursue my studies in a place that provided me so many opportunities. And I met a lot of wonderful people, and I was able to access a lot of my projects that I've worked on throughout grad school and currently at the moment by being in this university. So the main issues that always held up and all of this process is again being from restricted countries. So I coming here, I had this romanticized version of space that it's the pale blue dot that connects all of us. We forget about nationalities. We forget about these invisible lines separating us and separating different countries until you realize that that specific thing is what is going to be stopping you and making your life a lot harder to access the basics that your colleagues in your classes were able to access. So I always face this kind of being the only woman international student from the Middle East in my classes, and it's kind of the minority of a minority of a minority problem, where the level of issues that you deal with are something no one around you can relate to, and that really inspired me to push forward, work on many advocacy avenues throughout media and otherwise to advocate against policies that discriminate for international students and really create opportunities for all of us to access more space opportunities. And I also started the Humanity United with MIT Arts and Nanotechnology in Space, the Humans Project, which is inspired by the Golden Record and was able to represent over 80 countries and 64 unique languages in space that we collected to create this kind of avenue for people to symbolically send their voices and messages to space.
Wow, that is really inspiring. It is indeed a pale blue dot when you look at it from space, but yet here from Earth, the lines seem very thick, very visible for most of us. And as you said, like, I guess none of us really want to leave their country behind, their family, their lives, their cultures, anything that actually makes us comfortable. Yet when faced with the choice to pursue our dreams, That passion is what actually moves us, makes us make these decisions, hard decisions. Tanya, right now you are a student. You are currently on the phase of experiencing all of this, like the movement from your family to a new country to everything. How's that going for you? How do you feel like nationality is playing a role here as student?
Absolutely. I think I completely related to the thought that Maya had in terms of, if you have big dreams and if you want to really pursue that, you have to come out of your shell and have to leave certain things behind, have to sacrifice some part of your life to achieve something that you've wished for or something that you've really dreamt of, and which will only be possible if you're leaving your country. I've been in Luxembourg for more than a year now. I think in terms of research opportunities at university, it's great because they are not something that is completely linked to the government. But I would say, in fact, in terms of the projects, there are some really interesting projects that I'm interested into. Maybe I could say it's a private company, a startup, or even government. But in case there's a project which is really government supported or funded, it's something that I can't really get involved into, or be it as simple as, I would say, the government agencies which have programs such as winter schools, summer schools, or even competitions that they organize for universities. And it really is sad and disheartening that, that is something that could be a really learning, enriching experience to provide what you've learned, to put your thoughts on the table, provide a unique perspective that you have, but you really can't, only because of that one barrier. But I think it's also a way of navigating through life. It's like you have to create your own path, or you have to create some opportunities for yourself that will keep or will help moving forward, I would say. Because I would say if you give up on that fact, or you just say, okay, there's no place for me here, so I cannot do anything. So if you put all your guards down saying nah, then it's not gonna work. But if you constantly try to, keep going and keep finding different places to uh, put forward what your thoughts are, put your ideas to work, I think there's definitely a place. Which brings me to, I think, Sepide. How do you think have you, kept yourself going, even with the fact of having, we can. I think when we reach a certain stage, we have faced multiple rejections or come up with obstacles that help us not going or move forward. So what do you think kept you move like going, even though you had that nationality barrier?
Yes, exactly. I present a little about my background in space after that I answer your question. My passion for space medicine and astronaut health guided me toward the space industry. My passion about space and sport. However, breaking into this field wasn't easy. I faced many rejection when applying for opportunities, but I never gave up. A turning point came when I was selected as an analog astronaut at the Lunar Research Station. This experience not only introduced me to an incredible team, but also allowed me to work on innovative projects such as studying hibernation for long-term space mission. This opportunity gave me visibility and credibility in the space community, reaffirming my commitment to the field and opening doors to new collaborations and research. And about the barriers in this field, my belief in the transformative power of space exploration is what keeps me moving forward. Space is about more than just science for me. It represents hope, global collaboration and the breaking of boundaries. I am deeply motivated to inspire others, especially young girls in countries like Iran, to dream big and pursue careers in a space. If you have a dream, please follow it. And despite the obstacles, I find immense satisfaction in tackling challenges that push humanity forward, whether through astronaut health research or advocating for diversity and inclusion in the space sector. There are days when I feel exhausted and I fear discouraging words from people around me saying, "You are Iranian, you have no chance in this industry." But I remind myself that my dream is worth every effort. It's not easy, but I know I don't have any other option. I want to achieve it, and that belief gives me the strength to continue.
It's definitely true. It's beliefs that keep us going in the darkest of hours when we feel a rejection, when we feel that nothing might actually work, or at least like when we question our life decisions. It's always that passion that keeps us trying to move forward, trying to believe that there is something good waiting for us at the end of the tunnel. About rejections, when I first arrived in France a couple of years ago, I really wanted to have a hands-on experience in space science. I applied for an internship, and the first email I got back was, "Hello, Mohammed. We are so interested, but can you please tell us about your nationality first?" So I wrote back, I said that I'm Tunisian. The second email was, "We are sorry. If you want to apply, we will have to do a background check that will take longer than the time of the internship itself, like counting when the internship starts and when it's over." So they were like, we cannot offer you this position. And the thing is, during my education, the time I spent in France and now in Sweden, I heard multiple stories about this, about people being denied opportunities, not because lack of passion or capacities to actually contribute, but because of this political play that's happening in the background of all of us, where nobody actually sees or have an access to. I heard of a friend being rejected from an internship, even though they arrived till the last part of it, just because of their nationality. Again, I heard of multiple stories like this. And I wanted to ask you, Maya, did you face anything similar during your time at the US? Were you rejected? Where did you feel that an opportunity was denied because of your nationality?
Oh yeah, it's kind of the summary of my experience really in the US. For years over, as a student, again being the only person from restricted countries and my class between my colleagues, it always feels like not only you're just international, you're even from an even more restricted bucket of countries among your international colleagues, that your whole dreams are going to be lived as nightmares as you proceed. So starting with internships, that was one of the biggest struggles when you see everyone around you getting the experience that they need to be able to get the jobs later on, while you can't really access and you're getting denied constantly all opportunities because you're not a green card holder or a US citizen. And again, I'm talking from the perspective of the US, but that clearly applies in all of your experiences in other countries. So it is a global issue. And going throughout my grad school experience, I was working on NASA's Mars 2020 rover mission. And for me, the way I was able to access that is doing it through universities as a student. Yet, I was always put in different mailing lists. I always would have to leave the call if they share their screen to show something that I'm not allowed to see. I wouldn't be able to touch the data myself until someone else transfers it to me, and then I'll be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to touch some of the hardware things that I'm working on. That's a really crucial part of my research. When I was doing certain internships, I'd have to be escorted everywhere, even when I'm having lunch, when I'm having anything in my life, I would need to have someone with me. So it always feels like the level of mistreatment and the way it gets compiled over time reaches a point where like you need to do something about it, you need to change. So um I definitely for sure faced a lot of this, and it's such a shame because no one of us chooses the nationalities we're born in, yet our entire life is really dictated by what passport we have, what piece of paper gets signposted on us when we catch our first breath. And you're making your entire life decisions based on that, while people around you, just because they were born at the quote unquote right place at the right time, they were able to just not even think about any obstacles or any issues in the way they handle this. And I think my main problem is a lot of times we put all countries in the same bucket when you are a foreign national in a certain country, but you do realize that a lot of us don't even have the privilege to go back to our home countries and be able to live there for certain, periods, mainly due to wars, due to extreme economic situations, due to a lot of causes that other people don't even have to deal with, So I had friends, European friends here in the US, that we're able to say like, it's a shame I can't get opportunities here in the US, but worst case, I'd go back to Europe and do my own thing. And the reality is, for a lot of us, we don't have that option even. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you have to choose whether this is the right path for you, whether you want to still continue your dreams or not. And you're constantly faced by more policies and more things are being produced by the government. But I think for me, the main thing that I realized is in undergrad, I thought I was the only person dealing with this issue. I didn't feel empowered enough to do something about it. And as I was growing more and more in the space sector, I started to realize how much of a big issue this is for all of my colleagues. And then after that, started to realize the global aspect of it. And this is kind of the power of the shared story that all of us can say that this is such a shared struggle globally that despite space being very romanticized, all of our opportunities in our lives are kind of red taped based on specific birthrights and specific opportunities in the places that we were born in. So I'll pause there and we can dig deeper into some of that detail.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's also this one thing I believe we were discussing the other day in our class where we were analyzing one of the companies in different countries, but also the fact that when we're not hiring a certain amount of talent from different countries, we're also missing out on these really incredible people, because I feel having brought up in a different country or having grown up with having a different perspective or a cultural background or even the way of teaching or learning different things, I feel everyone has a really unique way to bring their creative ideas or their project ideas, which I feel are missing out, and I feel that they are not taken into consideration, which is why we're also missing out on a lot of great talent that really exists. And slowly I feel also some of the people, they take a step back from the space industry, not because of they are not interested into it, but even when they have the passion for it, it's their interest, instead of being into industry, focuses or diverts to a different area of aspect, but the passion still continues. But the struggle is only the fact of not having the certain nationality, I would say, uh, which would bring me to an open question, I would say, in terms of, okay, we have a rejection, we face, we try to create opportunities for ourselves, but what do you all think in terms of thinking of a different way to get into the industry, or working on different kinds of areas or projects that could help you get more closer to the industry, but also keep your interest and dream alive in terms of working on the projects or the areas of the space industry that you're really interested into. Because I feel the more we talk about the whole idea of, really, I feel the romance of, or romanticizing the idea of space and how beautiful it is, but forgetting that there also are real challenges that exist. So what do you think, uh, that could be on a higher chance of success criteria, that you could follow a different path or navigate different areas to reach the space industry. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to start commenting on that and open up the discussion as well. So I'll just say one small anecdote. And in my previous work on the Mars 2020 mission, we were working on the first ISRU in-situ resource utilization instrument, and the idea of it is that we would allow future human exploration on Mars. We were working on being interplanetary, yet in our projects we couldn't be international. So that for me is a big strike of how the aerospace industry operates, and the big dreams of pursuing humanity to be interplanetary and doing all these big things, not realizing that these take all countries globally to be able to be part of. So I'd say a few things on that regard. One of the main things that helped me in my track in the aerospace industry is to access things through academia. Obviously, there's a lot of paths to do things. Academia is one of the really unique ways where you can be employed and getting your research throughout the university rather than an aerospace company, which would alleviate some of the issues you're going to have to face to be employed there. You'd be able to work on a lot of NASA projects, on a lot of research things that are not painted by this dual use issues and a need for different licenses. Now, you might not be able to access everything, same to the experience I was talking about, but you would still be able to build your portfolio, build your resume, and meet people and work on such projects. So I would really advise people to make use of that and make use of a lot of the research programs that are available. In the US, I'll point out, for example, at MIT, we have a lot of projects that we've done with NASA and other space agencies and other, industry when it comes to space opportunities. There's universities like Caltech that is right next to NASA JPL that offer for undergraduates research programs throughout the summer, where you can spend the summer there and work on projects that are space related and be able to build your portfolio and network. And networking is such a key piece to it. So one of the best advice I was told before is the best time to network with people is when you need them the least. And I think that has changed really my life and the way I talk to people, because I'm always interested in hearing people's stories. I'm always interested to reaching out to folks that I love and I'm inspired by, to let them know my story and get to know theirs and get their advice, even when I don't need something from them now. And you never know when the points connect in the future and how the life is going to shape itself and what opportunities you might be later able to work with in 5 years, 10 years. So networking is a big key to it. And the last thing I'd say is a lot of what you see in on websites of certain companies that will say, hey, you're not allowed to apply unless you are a green card holder or a US citizen, etc. That doesn't always apply. The main issue is a lot of times these companies don't want to put the effort and the work to do the paperwork needed for you to get a license that would allow you to work on these projects. And this is where the networking piece comes into play, because a lot of these companies, if they want you enough and if they find your experience and portfolio impressive enough, they will put the effort to make it happen if you've networked correctly. So not that this is a fair way to play it, but this is just one way to say, unless you're applying to a hardcore governmental agency or like a defense program, you can still access some opportunities by networking and making sure you reach out to the right people that can put the effort to go through the paperwork needed for your licenses. So I'd put it there. And the last point I'll make is things change. A lot of the policies we think will never change. A lot of the things that we find as barriers that are really hard to even face or talk about, we can change over time. And the more we realize that this is a global issue, the more we can push it forward. We did that in the US throughout the pandemic and the previous administration, where there were a lot of, new restrictions for international students. And we were able, through universities and lawyers, to actually make a difference and reverse the policies they were putting. So even policies could be changed, and advocacy plays a really big role. So I really would advise people to be part of that effort as well, to create the big global impact.
Thank you so much, Maya, for sharing your incredible insights into how to find a different path through to space industry through academia. From my personal experience, I think that kind of lines of what I have in mind in the future. I At some point I decided that um, accessing space from industry is going to be hard to challenge and more or less not exactly what I want to do. So academia do offer a big door, better, I would say easier sometimes to do more research that is related to the space sector or science in different fields without exactly having to go through all the different processes to access that. and and about networking, that is definitely a key and very important point. In the end, space sector is not about one government, one agency, and government and agencies are not a physical thing. They are made out of humans, and humans still have emotions. They still have they still can see you for the person you are, while government and agencies will only see a name and number. A human being can see something in you that your resume may or may not reflect. So by going out and trying to talk about yourself more, introduce yourself more, show people that they are missing out on something if they don't hire you, if they don't put on the effort to get you on board. And yeah, and how about you, Sepide? What was your solution, kind of way to keep in touch with the space when it seems hard?
In my side, I completely agree with continue in academia and research institute, because in my opinion, they could offer a scholarship or mentorship programs, especially for people from underrepresented countries. Hand-on projects and partnership with the industry would also help students feel more prepared for real-world challenges. And honestly, just being more transparent in how they select candidates or hire research could make a huge impact. It's about creating a system that welcome everyone, not just those with the right passport. And in the other hand, I have considered working in other industry that it's related to a space and earth too. For example, especially in area that can make a meaningful impact here on earth and in medicine. I'm particularly interested in finding opportunities that are related to both space and medicine, but have applications here on Earth as well. Whether it's advancing medical technology inspired by space research or working on solutions that improve health outcome in extreme condition, I want to contribute to fields that benefit humanity while staying connected to my passion for space.
I want to just jump in to say one thing. I fully agree with you, Sepide, on the work on different parallel paths that are not necessarily the classic of what we see the space sector should look like. So working on earth sciences, working in medicine, realizing that any space project and space program has people that come from all types of different backgrounds when it comes to electrical engineering, medicine, etc. So you don't necessarily have to study space to work in the space sector. So that might open up for you more opportunities. And we are now on an SJC podcast. So I would say joining global organizations like SJC is also such a good way to build your network, get connected to more people in the space sector, attend conferences, and work on research things and items and papers that you could add to your portfolio and resume without being subjugated to the issues you might face in the space industry. So this is just a shout out to SJC for its role in that.
Thank you so much, Maya, for the shout out. Of course, AGAC is definitely a good way to start your career, to start your path into space. Even if you feel a little bit that you cannot access directly through associations such as AGAC, you can keep in link with the space, even if you work on something completely different and waiting for the right opportunity. Also, as you said, AGAC provide a perfect environment for networking and getting to know people from all over the world. And also something that is important to know that uh, sometimes opportunities may not arise in a certain country, in certain context, in certain time, and but that, as have been said before in this panel, that might change. Times do change, so sometimes it's good to slow down a little, to wait a little bit for the right moment to come. Opportunities will come. That's the thing about life. Opportunities will always come, but we need to be ready for them.
Hi, everyone. Let's take a small break for the fun fact segment of this episode. My name is Stephanie, and I'm going to talk to you about space law. Did you know that there are international agreements that guide how countries interact with other organizations in outer space? The first of these agreements is the Outer Space Treaty, which was signed in 1967 and involves 115 parties. Some of the notable elements of the OST ban nuclear weapons in space and explicitly state that space exploration should be open to all nations. The OST also led to additional agreements on space vehicles. More recently, NASA and the U.S. Department of State led the authorship of the Artemis Accords, which were signed in 2020. The Accords outline the principles that should be followed in space, especially when considering future crewed missions to the moon. Interestingly, there is also an agreement known as the Moon Treaty, which was signed in 1979, that attempted to place the moon explicitly under international law. However, the agreement was only signed by 11 nations and not signed by any country that launched its own astronauts, so it doesn't hold any real authority over the moon. And with this, we conclude the fun fact segment. Now, back to your episode.
One thing that kept coming back and forth in this discussion was the word passport. That little piece of paper that has your name, picture, and nationality on it, and sometimes can be a big door opener or can close a lot of doors for you depending on the situation. So, my question would be for our guest: have you ever wished you were born somewhere else? Have you ever wished that you had a different nationality? I know that I did. Quite recently, few weeks ago, I was dealing with a lot of troubles getting my visa here in Sweden. I was like, oh, life would have been 1,000 times easier if I was European. And yeah, so my question would be: have you ever felt the same way, that you wished you were born somewhere else?
If I said no, I'd be lying. Of course, there have been many moments when I wished I were born elsewhere, especially when I see European or American individual, often 5 or 6 years younger than me, working easily in the space industry or landing opportunities I've been rejected for solely because of my nationality. It's frustrating, especially when I don't agree with my government policies. But despite this feeling, I love Iran and I'm proud of being Iranian. My ultimate goal is to challenge stereotypes and show the world that Iranians are peacemaker, not what the media or politics might portray. I want to inspire change and prove that where we come from doesn't define who we are or our capabilities.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I mean, again, I'd be lying if I say I had never thought of how lucky I would have been if I was born somewhere else. And I love Lebanon so dearly. I think, culturally, my family, where I grew up, I love everything about it. That said, um, again, when I look at my colleagues and my friends who just because they were born somewhere else in Europe and the US, they never had to deal with visas. They never had to deal with opportunity issues. They never had to deal with wars and conflict that are currently ongoing. They never had to, constantly wake up and worry about their families and wake up and worry about how they're going to follow their dreams, yet leave their, parents behind. Yeah, be able to deal with all of this at once. They just had the privilege not to deal with any of this just because they were born in a different place. I'm almost going to be, 30 years old, in in a couple of years. I would have spent more than 30 years of my life trying to get somewhere where I don't even will have the passport yet, where my colleagues have had that opportunity since they were born. All of the things I'm going through, the amount of pain and distance and doing all of this, they wouldn't have to. They don't have to deal with it. So I would say it's definitely sometimes it makes your blood boil by how inequitable this world is. But you do realize that honestly, despite all of this inequity, the fact that I had to go through all these issues actually built up a lot of my character, and my life would have looked so much different if I hadn't gone through all this. I do appreciate, the difference that I had to deal with and how much more resilient it made me, how much more opportunities it actually gave me to meet people who share similar struggles that I would have not met otherwise. That said, it is not okay that we have to go through this to begin with, but there's a tiny silver lining there that I try to focus on, of the type of life and mindset that I currently have that was shaped because of where I grew up and the type of passport that I had. But yeah, it is really frustrating when you see everyone that doesn't have to deal with visas and just life is so simple and easy to them, while every minute of every day in my life I'm thinking my brain is divided between my family and parents and the war ongoing, and then my current status of my work and deliverables and what I'm going to do next in my career, things that my colleagues don't have to even think about. So yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. I think even though it's been a year or over a year that I've been here in Europe, I think I'm already thinking of uh, 8 months ahead of time, because there's so much of uncertainty when you're not a citizen of a particular country or a continent. And it's like that's you can't be reasonable, because even if you're being reasonable, there are people that are citizens of this country that don't really understand where we are coming from. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, because I mean, also, for example, they've been brought up with this privilege of having different opportunities that they could explore. I would say the easiest example that comes to my mind is the science festival where I volunteered here, and little kids had the chance to play with these robots, or do these experiments that were really interesting, and really I think that was the best way to keep their brain stimulated and be curious. And I felt I wish I had these experiences as a kid. But given the fact, I think I still love my country and love where I come from, the whole cultural aspect, and my family and friends that I've left behind. But I feel that if I could get here and do something, uh, I could definitely give it back in some way, where now we have a chance to create more opportunities, and that more young girls and boys get these chances of having those experiences and live those experiences to build uh, and achieve something more that's meaningful for them. So yes, definitely.
Exactly. I mean, something that I think it's quite important to highlight is being uh, traveling to another country is never an easy decision. It's a lot of things that one have to leave behind: their families, their brothers, sisters, their culture, and you have to look at all of that grow up far away from you, and you end up with this feeling that that is no longer your home 100%. It changed since you were not here, and you somehow lose that feeling of belonging to somewhere. Things do change. You are far away, trying to navigate between so many different things, and life is just goes by. And sometimes you have to look at your parents grow from far away and always wondering whether or not you will be able to come back and share their last moments with them, to have one more meal with them. And it's never an easy decision to do that. It's a hard one, but it's one that people do make. At least all of us here did make, because we had this one dream, one burning desire to do something uh, beyond what was dictated by the status quo of our countries, the world, of how it works. We all want to bring up something new to show that where we come from is 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 good, is actually very good. Like I don't know, like when in my education, whenever I spoke about Tunisia and my country, everybody talked about desert, while in Tunisia there was so much more about that. We as expat people who travel from one country to another, we bring more than just our capabilities. We bring a new vision of cultural vision to things that are happening already. Science and space don't only improve through new discoveries, they also improve and advance through this humanitarian connection that is created behind. One thing that Maya said, and it's truly very important to understand, that the talk in space right now is about interplanetary discoveries, pathing the word for the next generation of humans who will go and live on Mars or other countries, while we still have so much division here on Earth. So the question will be, what should we do? How can we think about that while we still have so much inequality here back on Earth? And so my question to you, my guest, will be: what do you think should happen right now? Should we keep on this goal-oriented goal to go full ahead and try to make as much scientific progress as possible, while leaving social problems behind? Or should we wait so we can come to a position where everything at least approaches equality, be, at least when space becomes something that people think about? Because for most people, space is just a big dream. They have bigger problems to think about, like having food or stopping war or running away with their life. Should we keep on trying to make scientific progress, or should we slow down a little bit and try to focus more about what's happening on Earth? So, how about you, Maya? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's this I could talk about this for hours into a full-on deep philosophical conversation about this, but the main issue, one thing I was discussing with a few friends before, is sometimes you can think of life as like a pyramid, where a lot of countries look at the base of the pyramid, which is being to really able to survive, being able to stay alive, get your be equally treated to others, be able to, get the food and nutrition and all of the healthy life that you need. And this, as you go up with the pyramid, it becomes smaller and smaller as we get more niche. And what do we need as humans in a case of like needing to explore different planets, needing to explore, etc. So it feels like for a lot of countries, people are still stuck in the first bottom of the pyramid, being able to survive, being able to get the opportunities to get something similar to what other countries are going through, while others are looking at the very niche needs and wants that we want in a specific exploration or mission. I personally think it shouldn't be an either or. I think we should be working on both at the same time. I'm trying to be realistic, because achieving equality globally is realistically not going to happen anytime soon. So we also don't want to, delay our potential exploration and delay answering some of the questions that are of interest to many of us, to a point where we get that equality. I think it should be something where we work at the same time, because the mentality that we're currently taking to space, with the ideas of colonization of space, with the ideas of first come, first serve, unlimited use of space resources, the way we approach our orbit and what's happening with the crisis and space debris, the way we approach everything around us in the space sector, is such a reflection of everything we've done here on Earth. And I think the more we get things better here on Earth, it will automatically be reflected in space. What scares me, and I do a lot of work in space law and policy, what scares me is the type of policies that we put right now, whether on engagement of different countries and different people, or really how do we navigate our missions and what we do in space, is very, very alarming, in a way that's setting legal precedent that will just repeat the story of all the horrible things we've done to our own wonderful planet as we go forward. So I would really, this is really very philosophical and in different layers, but we can't stop our exploration. I think it's about thinking of both sides, life on Earth and our efforts in space, as two sides of the same coin. And the more we work on making things more equitable and better here on Earth, the more it will automatically be reflected in our efforts in space.
And for you, Sepideh, what is your take on this? Do you think it's reasonable to try to do both at the same time with the current global context, or should we invest more resources in trying to make Earth more equal for everybody before trying to go ahead and try to build, well, get humanity out of the comfort of our home, Earth?
Of course, we can work in both sides. Now, humanity face significant challenges, but we should focus on using space technology to solve Earth's problems. And in my side, I believe that even a small action can create meaningful change, especially when it comes to education, for example. Alongside my main goals, I hope to have a positive impact by sharing knowledge and inspiring others, whether it's mentoring young people, encouraging women to pursue a STEAM field, or simply raising awareness about the opportunities in space and science. I want to contribute to building a more inclusive and empowered future. Education is such a powerful tool, and if I can help even a few people see their potential and chase their dream, I feel like I've made a difference. And yeah, we can work in both sides, and we can change our earth and have a big change for future in a space too.
Absolutely. I think one of the important things I feel is we are facing so many challenges on Earth, and while we are facing those, a lot of things are being neglected, and we are still trying to build technologies to go to the Mars. I mean, I would not say that in terms of having robots to help us understand the climate there, or to understand, okay, what is when did they start to exist, a particular natural phenomenon that we want to study, that's fine. But if you're trying to build a human habitat in there, it's questionable, because we're facing the problems of, I'd say, climate change. We know where, or war situation where majority of the people on Earth are really struggling. So I would say our main focus should also be how we could improve the life on Earth with existing space technologies, and how can we advance with those technologies to uh, improve further. So I think it's a balance of both, um, which is important. Otherwise, we're going to end up damaging our planet. And I think that's not the loss we would want to expect.
Exactly. I think the reasonable thing will be to keep the advancement in space going, but also not forget about life here on Earth, that about the struggles of the people that still look at space as an elite sector, not open for them, and that will consider that the sometimes the money and resources that are put there would have been better put into their own conditions. Using space technologies to solve Earth problem is a noble cause, is a cause that we should defend, because space is linked to Earth. It does not exist in a separate social or economical context. It is part of everything that is happening, and the advancement that we make in understanding better the universe reflect better on how we understand ourselves here on Earth, and how we can solve the problems better. Take just for example, um, satellite uh, vision, and how it helped a lot to understand how we grow better food, or predict natural catastrophes so we can help people better, or even study the effects of climate change. So indeed, the research that we make in space can always be utilized to make life here on Earth more equal and get all people to a certain level of equality at least. So we are approaching the end of this episode, dear listeners, and the last thing we would like to ask our guests will be, what is your advice for the people that are on the step right now of making that decision, of leaving their country, their family, their culture behind, and going to try to pursue a career in space or education in space in another country? What will be your advice for them? What would have been the advice that you wanted to hear when you were in that position?
To anyone out there dreaming of space and astronomy, I want to be honest with you. We live in a world that isn't always fair or just. It's not easy, and there will be days when you feel overwhelmed, sad, or even question your path. Those moments aren't often talked about, but they are real, and it's okay to feel that way. If you have a dream in your heart, like a small light, protect it fiercely. On the hardest days, when everything feels like too much, take a moment to hug yourself, acknowledge your feeling, and remind yourself why you started. It's hard, I won't sugarcoat that, but if you can keep that light alive, even in the darkest moment, you will find the strength to keep going. And as you chase your dream, remember that every step you take toward it can also make the world a little more just, a little brighter. Even it's just one small step. So keep going. The world needs your light.
Wow, I mean, yeah, fully fully agree with you, Sepideh. This is fantastic advice. And I fully agree regarding the honesty about the path. If I could go back to me when I was, very passionate, I still am about space, to anyone who is in a similar position, that despite how much we romanticize space and how wonderful it is, the path to working in the sector is not going to be easy. It's going to have a lot of ups and downs. It's going to have a lot of challenges, but the main reminder is you're not alone. I think creating the community that supports you and finding the people who can mentor you will make the biggest difference in your experience and in how you proceed forward within the sector or otherwise. And I think one big advice is taking the risk to pursue certain opportunities, knowing that the chances of that working out is very limited. I think one of the main things that growing up in Lebanon made me more resilient in is you have a thing in Lebanon where you kind of expect things are not going to work. So you always apply for many opportunities. You always consider many options. You have many plans. And if something doesn't work out, you'll have something back to fall onto. And I think this is very important that despite us following our dreams, always, consider many options, consider many paths, and know that if something doesn't work out, you will still be okay. Things are still going to somehow be figured out and be okay. And that knowledge brings a lot of comfort to me right now, knowing that there's no door that I'm going to close that I won't be able to open. And life will eventually turn out okay. So take the risk, follow something you're passionate about, and really invest in a community and in a set of mentors that will be there for you no matter what and will be able to support you.
Definitely, I think being humans of this planet or being space explorers, I believe we have this responsibility to not only fulfill our dreams of exploring the great unknown, but also represent hope and progress for the rest of humanity. Which also brings me to this closing questions of if you have anything that you could say to um, people who have privilege of living in a particular country of privilege that don't necessarily understand the struggles of internationals in the space sector. Um, what do you think you'd want to tell them, or in terms of the perspective that you'd want them to have to look towards us?
I think one thing is really for people who were born with such privileges to take a moment and reflect on how different their life would have been if they were born somewhere else. If just the moment that they had nothing to choose or say about so happened to be in a different country, in a different location, how their everyday would have looked like, how the opportunities they access would have looked like. And once they reflected on that, try to be part of the solution. It's one thing to understand the privilege and to bring awareness to it, but another to also try to help in making things more equitable. So for folks who come from specific countries and have these privileges, to try to help others, whether by connecting them to people, whether by if you have a specific company or labs to accept people from different countries, even though the process to accepting them and the paperwork needed is more difficult, giving them an opportunity. So I think it's important for them to both reflect on what they have, but also create opportunities and be part of the solution to help more people globally. Because that I think is what's going to help us address the key big issues that affect us globally as humanity as we proceed forward in the sector.
Yeah, I agree with Maya. Uh, Recognize your privilege and use it to create opportunity for others who face barriers. People from less privileged countries often work twice as hard to reach the same milestone, not because they lack talent, but because of the systematic barriers. If you are in a position of influence, advocate for inclusivity, diversity, and fairness in the space industry. Your support can make a huge difference in breaking down these barriers.
Wonderfully put, Sapide. Thank you. It is indeed our collective obligation and duty towards humanity in global to try to take down these barriers that were created by fear and try to replace them with paths that are filled with hope. Hope not only to go into space, but hope for approaching a future where everyone feels equal and welcomed to no matter what uh, subject or field they want to pursue. A future where the moon that we all look at translates by opportunities to go there for everyone here on earth. Everyone with the passion, with the will to want to go there can have that opportunity. And this is the whole point of this discussion. We want to bring, to shed the light on this particular struggle that some people find or face whenever they try to go into space sector. We want other people to know that they are not alone, or to recognize that this problem exists and that it is possible to solve it if we collectively work for it. Thank you for our guests, Maya and Sepide, for being here with us today on the Our Giant Leap podcast. It was a pleasure to have you. And thank you for sharing your insights in this crucial topic and your advices and your stories and backgrounds. This brings us to the conclusion of our episode today. For our dear listeners, you can always interact with us directly on our Diversity and Gender Equality Project Group social media. Leave a feedback or advice from your side. Tell us what you think about the story, what you think about the discussion. Do you share the same problems? Do you want somewhere to talk? We will be always here to listen to you. And also let us know who you want us to interview next. If you have ideas for people to be here on the podcast, or maybe for yourself to be on the podcast, feel free to discuss with us. Thank you for listening. We are your hosts, Amin
And Tanya, signing off.